We get a first-hand account of the scene down under for the LA Kings at the Global Series in Melbourne as we check in with the guys from Hockey Hype Australia. That's next on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we're on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast. It's a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the last 17 years, and of course, a passionate LA Kings fan for 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's Jase medical.com. We are going to jump 17 hours into the future. Joining us on Friday morning in Melbourne, Australia, live at Rod Laver Arena, where our LA Kings will be taking on the Arizona Coyotes in a pair of Global Series games, are the co-founders of Hockey Hype Australia. It is Andrew McDougall and Gordon Goodenough. Guys, it is great to have you with us, live from Down Under. Great, looking forward to talking a little hockey with you guys. I know you're excited to be there. And let me start by saying this. Andrew, I saw a tweet that you put out, and I thought it was awesome, and I'm going to read it real quick. You tweeted the other day, quote, "I feel like crying. Honestly, it's been a bit overwhelming. For 10-plus years, I've done articles, podcasts, trying to promote the sport. Today, I got news NHL media accreditation has been approved. An unreal feeling on cloud 9, end quote. That is awesome that you've been working on this passion project, trying to promote this sport in a country, obviously, that it's not traditionally known for. And for you to be there covering an NHL event in your native country, that's got to be pretty amazing.
It's like a dream come true, honestly. For people in North America, they probably don't realise that it's a lot of volunteer work here with hockey in Australia. That's from club level, players, administration, fans, all that sort of stuff. So, I've been plugging away just as a volunteer freelance journalist for 10 plus years. And it's sort of pinching myself still now that I'm at Rod Laver Arena. We went and had a look at the rink and it all looks awesome. So, really excited.
Well, that's awesome. And Gordon, I'm going to ask you this in a second as well. But Andrew, why don't you start us off? How did you get into the sport of hockey, which obviously is not a traditional sport in Australia? How did you get into it? What interested you?
I had a passing interest playing PlayStation, which probably a lot of kids did, playing NHL on PlayStation. And then in 2010 in Melbourne, there was a new club called the Melbourne Mustangs that emerged. And I went down and watched an exhibition game that they had before they got a license to get into the Australian Ice Hockey League. And from then, it was they were my team. And I started following the sport and fell in love with it and started a blog and then started getting into writing. And hockey's the reason I studied journalism and got into journalism. So that's my story.
That's awesome. A favorite team in the NHL? And please don't say the Anaheim Ducks.
No, it's not. It's not the Ducks. I'm a Calgary Flames fan.
All right, very good. Gordon, same question for you. How did you get into the sport of ice hockey?
Yeah, so I was born in Canada, and so I watched Hockey Night in Canada kind of growing up until I was 7, and we moved to Australia, and I used to listen to the games on NHL radio and on individual radio stations over the internet. And then back in 2016, saw my first Australian Ice Hockey League game. I didn't know that there was a league down here, and fell in love with it. It was amazing. And I'm biased, but I think live hockey is the best live sport that you can go to. The sounds of the game, the crowd, everything is amazing. And it's a really niche sport here, but it's really highly supported, and we punch above our weight in international competitions as well. And then I've been writing for did my own website, and I've written for a few teams, worked with some different leagues. And yeah, excited now that this will be my first ever NHL game. So I'm pretty excited about that.
And Gordon, do you have a favorite NHL team that you kind of follow?
I'm a Leafs fan, so
okay. I'm sorry to hear that.
I have a lot of. That's the response I get a lot, Eddie, and there is a lot of trauma there. So
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, that was another question I certainly wanted to ask, and I assume I'll start with you, Andrew. That this is your first NHL game live and in person. What are you looking forward to seeing the most, do you think?
It is my first NHL game. I do joke around with Gordon that I want to see Logan Cooley. I'm a bit of a Logan Cooley fan. So I'm looking forward to seeing Logan roll around. But yeah, just both teams. Just looking to see how they're looking. There's a few new additions to LA. So I want to see how they go out in the ice and how they all sort of gel. And just a setup at Rod Laver. I've never seen hockey on this scale in Australia before. So yeah, there's a lot of Kings jerseys floating around. So yeah, it should be good to see the crowd and how they react to it all.
And for the Kings fans who don't know, Logan Cooley plays for the Arizona Coyotes. Gordon, Rod Laver Arena hosting this game. You guys are there on site. It's the home of the Australian Open. For people that don't know, seats around 14 to 15,000 from what I understand. Are we expecting a sellout? Do you know how much tickets have been going for? And is this going to be kind of a major broadcast event as well? Do you know?
Yeah, so tickets are still available, but it's pretty close to a sellout. Certainly for the Saturday game. I'm unsure about the Sunday, and it'll be the best sport that's ever been played in the stadium. So that should be exciting. And it will be broadcast, which I think is huge. It will be broadcast on, we call it free-to-air TV. I don't know what the equivalent is over there, but not restricted to pay-per-view or cable. So I think that's huge because the game occurs at 2:00, and it's a good viewing time. Saturday, Sunday afternoon. We love our sports here in Australia. So hopefully it will introduce more fans to the experience.
And Andrew, what is the buzz like there in Melbourne or in Australia? Is this being viewed as a unique event? I mean, certainly it is. It's the first NHL game ever played in the Southern Hemisphere. But do you get the sense people generally, just general sports fans, are talking about this at all?
Yeah, I think so. The LA Kings have been out and about in Melbourne to different places. There's a place called Culture Kings here. They sell a lot of apparel and things like that. I know the Kings are out there doing a bit of promotional work. Gordon jumped off the plane from Sydney and went past the O'Brien Ice House, which is the main rink here in Melbourne that the two teams play out of. And there's a big sign there from one of the major media companies. And there's plenty of people outside already. They're rolling in. Gordon and I got here about 10 to 8. There's plenty of fans lining up already. So the buzz is building, and I think it's I think people are appreciating how big this actually is.
All right, we're going to have some more with the co-founders of Hockey Hype Australia in just a minute here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, this episode of Locked On LA Kings brought to you by AG1. With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. AG1 contains less than 1 gram of sugar, costs you less than $3 a day, and it's one scoop in a cup of water. That's it. No need for a million different supplements to look out for your health. And if a comprehensive solution is what you're needing from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/NHL network. Again, that is drinkag1.com/NHL network. All right, we are back with Andrew McDougall and Gordon Goodenough. They are the co-founders again of Hockey Hype Australia, and giving us a taste of what's going on with the LA Kings and the Global Series games that'll be taking place here very soon. Let's start with you, Gordon. What has been the last few days been like for you being around this event? Obviously, we mentioned you guys were able to get media credentials to cover this event, get behind the scenes. Been checking out some practices. I've been talking to any players. I know there is a Australian-born LA King player, Jordan Spence, who's a defenseman for the team. Have you guys been able to talk to him? Just what's been going on this week for you?
So for me, I'm probably the wrong one to ask this question, but I just flew in from Sydney yesterday afternoon. But I know for me and for us, we've spent a bit of time over the last few days getting our photographer media accreditation, getting agreement set up with the NHL as far as image protection, etc. But I've been seeing a lot of people for me who are traveling down to the event and messaging me. It seems like a huge amount of the ice hockey community is going to be down here, from coaches, players, volunteers and fans. So it's going to be an outstanding event.
Andrew, have you been able to be there a little bit longer and checking some of the things out?
No, I'm very similar to Gordon, unfortunately, but I know the Kings have been doing a lot of work at O'Brien Ice House. They've had some practices there. They've also been training and sort of showing the younger kids here within Ice Hockey Victoria, some of the younger players, doing a bit of practice with them. So they've really been getting out into the community, which is really good to see. It's good to see the LA Kings aren't just coming over here, playing a couple of games and then departing. They're really getting involved with the local ice hockey scene.
Gordon, are the LA Kings known at all in Australia? Are they a team kind of note? I know you're a Maple Leafs fan, and if you're going to pick a brand, I guess, for the NHL, that would be one of the bigger brands. But what about the LA Kings? And are there any specific Kings players that you're interested in seeing on the ice?
Yes, so I'm excited to see Anze Kopitar. Kopitar helped me win my fantasy hockey league in 2017-2018. So shout out to him. Looking forward to seeing Jordan Spence, as you mentioned. He's the first Australian-born player to play an NHL game. So if we can have a chat with him, that would be cool. The LA Kings have quite a strong showing. So if you go to an Australian Ice Hockey League game, there's a significant portion of the crowd in jerseys, both jerseys supporting the local team and also NHL teams. And the Kings are always strongly supported. I think what helps them is obviously, when Gretzky came in the 90s and that, 93 kind of cup run, and their success of late with Drew Doughty and, recently departed Jonathan Quick and Kopitar and Dustin Brown, etc. So that they are a well-known team. I'm hopeful. I've discussed this with Doogie. I'm hopeful that the NHL, because the time difference during our summer and your winter is only 5 hours. So a 7:30 game at Staples Center is occurring at 2:30 p.m. In the afternoon our time. So it's very easy for fans to kind of follow and maybe catch some of the games. So I'm hopeful that the LA Kings kind of make a regular trip over here once a year or once every couple of years.
Now, as I mentioned at the top of the show in my little intro, I'm co-host of the Puck podcast. It really is a podcast that gets a lot of following overseas. And we actually have a pretty loyal following in Australia. Matter of fact, for my 50th birthday, I went to Sydney and met up with about a dozen of our listeners right there under the Sydney Harbour Bridge, right next to the Opera House. Had an awesome meeting with them. So I know that there is a small but very passionate hockey community there in Australia. But Andrew, how difficult is it, though, to kind of follow the sport at the NHL level? I know we've got obviously technology and satellite dishes, the internet. Is it still a challenge, though, to be able to follow the NHL there?
It can be. It could be a little bit easier viewing-wise. But for the most part, with the advances in social media, Facebook groups, things like that, it is getting a lot easier to follow the sport here. And as Gordon mentioned, a lot of the times in North America, the puck drop times, that they're during the summer, it's quite good here. So as I mentioned at the start, I'm a Flames fan, and I get to either watch or listen to Flames radio, things like that. So it's quite accessible.
So I don't know amongst the hockey community, or maybe just kind of the general hockey community, is we talked about Jordan Spence, and I know a lot is being made that he was born there, but of course he was not raised in Australia. He was raised in Japan and then moved to Canada. But there is an Australian who is currently playing in the NHL. Now, he wasn't born in Australia, but he was raised there, and that's Nathan Walker for the St. Louis Blues. Started his career out with the Washington Capitals. Is he a fairly well-known person in Australia as being the lone Australian, really the true Australian, if you will, to play in the NHL? Gordon, I'll ask you that one.
Yes and no. So yes, within the ice hockey community, I think uh, I think that Australia could do a better job of showcasing him and promoting him as the face of the sport. I think that's something that even Nathan Walker, he was on a podcast recently for Skaters Network, and he mentioned the fact that he hasn't been as involved as he would like to be. He hasn't been given that opportunity. So I think I would like to see him. I mean, he's a Stanley Cup winner. He's scored an NHL goal. He got the most awkward phone conversation, congratulations, from the Australian Prime Minister at the time. It's just a sensational story to get around. And I'm hoping, I certainly know that Nathan Walker is open to it. I'm certainly hoping that the powers that be kind of put him front and center of the sport, because that's what we need. We need kids to go and look at him and say, I can be that. That's something that I can do.
And Andrew, I know that when we've had some of these special events here in the United States and Canada, the Winter Classics, the Stadium Series games, they've also had some other opportunities for other teams to play at the arena because, I mean, you've got the ice there, right? Why not take advantage of it? Are there any local teams, whether it be youth teams or even maybe the higher level teams, that will be playing before or after the Kings games there at Rod Laver Arena, or will they take advantage of the ice there?
Yeah, I believe there's an Aboriginal ice hockey team. Gordon might be able to correct me on this. I think they're practicing today. I don't think they're playing tomorrow. Is that correct, Gordon? But I know there's an Aboriginal ice hockey team that Kerry Goulet is actually involved with. So they're going to be out on the ice.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Gordon.
Yeah, they're from Adelaide, and it's an Indigenous team that the Agauna Boomerangs, I believe, is the name.
Nice.
Apologies for the pronunciation, but they travelled the North America and played some various First Nations teams in North America, and then reciprocated that invitation earlier this year in July. They had an Indigenous team, a First Nations team, come over from Canada and play in various cities in Australia. So it's a really good story. Kerry Goulet is, since he's come to Australia, he's really made the most of these kind of initiatives.
All right, we're going to find a little bit more out about what you guys are doing as far as Hockey Hype Australia, a little bit more about the Australian hockey scene as far as some of the local teams there. We will do that here in just a second on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, this episode also brought to you by Birddogs. What are Birddogs? Well, they are shorts that have a liner built into them, so you don't have to wear anything underneath. I know that sounds weird, but I ask you, is it weird to be comfortable and look good? Because that's exactly what Birddogs are. Best of both worlds. Not only do Birddogs look good, but they feel good. You could wear them to a nice dinner, or you could work out in them because they're something that can be active and stretchy and move around with you. And once you try them, you're going to wonder why you never heard of these before. So go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL. And when you enter the promo code LockedOnNHL, they'll throw in a Birddog water bottle. Again, that is birddogs.com, birddogs.com. Enter the promo code LockedOnNHL for your free gift. All right, a little bit more with Andrew McDougall and Gordon Goodenough. Guys, tell me about Hockey Hype Australia. I'll start with you, Andrew. I know you guys are both co-founders of the site. And what is it all about? Is it mostly devoted to hockey in the country of Australia?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Gordon and I worked together for a different sports media website, which was just all-encompassing different sports. And we departed from there and had some conversations, and we felt that there was a gap in the market here for a hockey-specific website. So that's what we're looking to do. It's more a lot of feature articles on Australian hockey players and young rising stars and all the stories within the sport here, because hockey has actually been around in Australia for a long, long time. The Goodall Cup is the major trophy here for the Australian Ice Hockey League, and this year we had the 92nd winner of it. So that just shows you how long hockey has been here. So there's plenty of cool stories, but that was, Gordon and I thought that there was a gap in the market for a hockey-specific website here.
And Gordon, what about is kind of the focus the Australian Ice Hockey League, which I assume is your version of the NHL? Is that kind of the focus, or is it pretty much maybe international teams? I know that was mentioned as well. Is there an Australian national team and how they compete as well?
Yeah, so our plan is to cover we've got the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League, which starts up next month, and there's 5 teams, and played obviously all across Australia from West Coast to East Coast, so a lot of traveling, but there's some real talent in our league. And the way that the Women's Ice Hockey League is structured is around the international tournaments. We have the under 18 Women's World Championships. We're in Division 1B in the women's under 18. So we're in the top 20 countries in the world, which people wouldn't necessarily associate Australia with being in the top 20 of anything ice hockey. But we do quite well internationally. So our hope is to really promote the leagues that are playing, both junior and senior, men's and women's, the national teams, as you mentioned, all levels of the sport, and the people associated with the sport, so the volunteers in all different roles in the sport. So just to give some coverage that has been sorely lacking.
Awesome. And Andrew, I mean, ultimately the NHL is there trying to expand the game. The Kings have talked about this trip and why they thought it was important to be a part of it, to grow the game and hoping to expose people to the game. But what do you hope comes of this? Is it just growing the game? Is it for people to kind of experience it firsthand and then get a taste of it and want to explore more and maybe find their way to your website, things like that? What do you think can come of this? Can this event really be something to expand the game in Australia?
I think it can, and I think it's from my perspective, it's the grassroots level. So we need more kids picking up the stick and playing hockey. So if kids come to these 2 games across the weekend, or even practice today, they'll see their stars out there, Pierre-Luc Dubois, all those sort of guys. Hopefully they can walk away from that and say to mum and dad, I want to play. I want to go and play hockey. And then it's making it accessible at the grassroots level for the kids to find hockey and be able to actually pick up a stick and get out there and play. We lose more rinks than we actually gain here in Australia at the moment. So I think we've got 21 or 22 rinks across the country. So it's just making it accessible for young kids to walk away from here. And I think it can happen. I think there will be an uptake in kids walking away from here and wanting to try out hockey and see how they go.
And Gordon, obviously we're talking to you before the events take place, but we mentioned what the buzz is about it. Has everything felt like this has been a really positive experience? Do you think in the end that the NHL is going to be happy with how this event goes and want to have another game down in Australia in the near future?
I think so. From the very beginning, when the NHL announced that the LA Kings and Arizona Coyotes will be coming over, they mentioned that it wasn't to be like a sideshow. It was, they wanted to establish a presence, and seeing the quality of strength of the rosters. And I've heard that the NHL told the teams to bring their full strength lineups, and they have. And I think that's been such a positive, because if you're a hockey fan, you would know the significance of that, of teams bringing an NHL lineup rather than an AHL lineup. So I think the NHL is invested. I think the crowd and the fans have responded based on the engagement at the various media events. So I'm hopeful for a long-term relationship with the NHL kind of starts here.
Well, guys, it's been great to talk to you. Really appreciate your time. And I know it's early in the morning there, so appreciate you guys checking in. I hope it's a great experience for you both, and I hope this does nothing but energize the hockey community there in Australia. That is Andrew McDougall and Gordon Goodenough from Hockey Hype Australia. You can follow them on Twitter or X or whatever they're calling it these days, at Hockey Hype AUS, and you can check out their website, hockeyhypeaustralia.au. Andrew, Gordon, it was great to meet you guys. Again, I hope you have a great time. I hope it's a wonderful experience for you, and really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thanks, Eddie. Thank you.
All right, guys, take care and enjoy the games. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed that. I was hoping we could get somebody on the scene. I was hoping we could get some Australians to join us and give us that perspective. So I hope you guys really enjoyed that. And looking forward to these 2 preseason games, obviously coming up our time, Friday and Saturday night. And then, of course, we'll be talking about both those preseason games coming up on Monday's show. That's going to do it for today's show. for you every day. Here's those of you that listen and watch every day. Coming up tomorrow, we will preview the Kings preseason openers in Melbourne and have our weekly fan feedback show as well. You can always leave your comments. If you're watching on YouTube, you can leave the comments below. If you want to send an email, it's lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE, lockedoneddie@gmail.com. Also would love you to stay interactive by following us on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thanks for listening and watching Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, go Kings go.